let's just go a little further here. Is what Ed suggested. What will we see in the future? You're at the leading edge of all this stuff, and what would you forecast?
It's a really interesting question for the sport. And I think we also need to kind of answer the question of what do we want? And we've seen, through our careers in sailing, we've seen all kinds of transition of, should carbon be legal in sails? Should carbon be legal in masts? And, things have gotten high tech, and by and large, they've almost invariably gotten better. But we do need to think about it as a sport of where we want to go. And, there's boats now where you have, powered backwinding winches where you can pull everything in or out from the weather rail just by pushing buttons. And autopilots, are getting as good as humans. And I participated in some of that. But, how far do we want to take it? Do we want to, because the road is, leading to a place where if we're not careful in an offshore race, the people on board the boats are just technicians, and the alarm rings and they're told to change sails and then go back and go to sleep, and the boat is trimmed and steered by AI, and the boat's routed by the cloud ashore. And is that really where we want to go?
This is the Sailing World on Water, March 26, 2021. Here are the global highlights in the sport of sailing in the last 7 days. Navigator, Stan Honey, voiced some good ideas in the U.S. sailing celebration of the Rolex Yachtsman of the Year awards. See it on the U.S. sailing website or ours, boatson.tv. The La Solitaire du Figaro and the Vendée Globe are the two top French races. We have a report from the superstars of offshore racing, Leclerc, Gabar, Riou. The Sailing Champions League, Asia Pacific, had to be cancelled in Newcastle as a huge weather cell pummeled the Australian coast. 200 kilometers away, 943 mils of rain, or 37 inches, was recorded. As the Kiwis crossed the finish line in the 36th America's Cup, nearby the representatives of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and the UK Royal Yacht Squadron Racing were inking an agreement for the 37th. Will it be a one-on-one deed of gift one-off, with Sir James Radcliffe joining the likes of Sir Michael Fay, Larry Ellison and the New York Yacht Club, who ran dog races? Marco Nannini is the race director of the Global Solo Challenge. Day 1 of the pre-Olympic sailing lead-up races in Lanzarote is proving a good experience before Tokyo later this year. The annual Cork Week Regatta will resume next year, and the experts rate how good it is. In Brisbane, Australia, the weather was just right for windsurfing. We have the action from round 9 of the Bayside Sailboards. Now over to Armel.
Il faut imaginer qu'on est sur un format solitaire du Figaro, c'est 4 sprints de 3-4 jours, et puis le Vendée Globe c'est un marathon.
Le Vendée Globe c'est un petit peu la course ultime en termes de longueur, en termes d'éloignement, en termes de performance de bateau. Les décisions que tu as à prendre sur un Vendée Globe finalement sont assez proches de ce qu'on a à faire sur la solitaire finalement, qui est gérer un bateau au large.
N'empêche que la différence principale, c'est le bonhomme qui est dessus, c'est pas l'outil qu'on a sous les pieds.
Ce qui est similaire, c'est l'émotion qu'on peut avoir au travers justement de tous ces moments de fatigue intense.
Sur la solitaire du Figaro, c'est là où on apprend beaucoup de choses, c'est-à-dire gérer son sommeil, gérer le mental, voilà, le côté sportif aussi. On découvre finalement plein de choses et des limites qu'on arrive à dépasser.
Un garçon qui est fatigué, après avoir séché 2 nuits à la solitaire, il va passer du rire aux larmes en moins de 30 secondes. Et il saura le gérer sur le Vendée Globe parce qu'il a vécu ça, la solitaire, et parce qu'en plus la solitaire, les étapes étant beaucoup plus courtes, quand on se laisse aller, la sanction elle est immédiate.
Toute cette pression finalement, on peut la travailler sur la solitaire du Figaro parce qu'on a tous les ans 4 étapes. On peut se retrouver en tête d'une étape et avoir 40 bateaux derrière soi à gérer, et ça met une certaine pression. Mais on peut aussi se retrouver en queue de peloton au milieu de flotte sur une étape compliquée. Il va falloir trouver des ressources justement pour gérer cette situation, savoir se relancer. Et ça, sur le Vendée Globe, c'est quelque chose qu'on doit faire au quotidien parce que la course est très longue et qu'il va se passer beaucoup de choses. L'expérience du Figaro, de mener des étapes de la solitaire, d'avoir gagné la solitaire, m'a beaucoup aidé justement à gérer cette pression.
Je ne crois pas que ce soit un incontournable d'avoir gagné la solitaire du Figaro pour gagner un Vendée. On va prendre François Gabard, on va prendre Vincent Rioux, on va prendre... c'est tout. Et puis si, forcément Tito Lamazou, qui lui n'a même pas fait la solitaire du Figaro. Par contre, avoir participé à la solitaire du Figaro, pour moi ça me paraît vraiment incontournable. Parce que c'est un circuit qui est monotype et qui est très exigeant en termes de rigueur, la rigueur du respect de la jauge, la rigueur de la préparation, puisqu'en fait il y a très peu de différence entre les très bons, ils ont le même bateau et presque les mêmes voiles. Le Figaro est plus une école de l'exigence dans les détails, quand sur l'IMOCA c'est plus une vision très globale qui va permettre d'aller accéder à de la performance.
D'un côté, c'est de la monotypie, c'est du one design, donc on a tous le même bateau.
La monotypie, c'est quelque chose de génial parce que c'est ce qui donne le plus de place à l'humain. Et au final, ce qui est important dans les courses de bateaux, je pense que les bateaux, c'est sympa de voir des jolis bateaux qui vont vite, même des bateaux qui volent et tout ça. Mais le plus important, c'est quand même les hommes qui font avancer les machines. C'est eux qui écrivent les histoires. C'est eux qui écrivent les histoires de la solitaire, c'est eux qui écrivent les histoires du Vendée Globe.
Mais sur le Vendée Globe, il faut respecter une jauge, mais on a quand même une liberté d'expression architecturale en termes de conception, en termes de système. Quand tu prépares un Vendée Globe, tu vas évidemment passer beaucoup de temps à réfléchir, à développer, à transformer ton bateau pour le rendre le plus performant, alors que sur la solitaire, tu peux pas le faire.
Et le pourquoi les deux s'assemblent bien, c'est quand on a déjà fait beaucoup de préparation sportive au travers de la solitaire et qu'on fait bien de la préparation technique sur un IMOCA pour le Vendée Globe, et ça fait des couples marins-bateaux forts au départ du Vendée Globe.
La course la plus difficile humainement, c'est le Vendée Globe, parce qu'il y a la difficulté déjà d'arriver au bout, qui était déjà une certaine montagne à franchir. Je dirais qu'après, au niveau sportif, vraiment la compétition pure, je pense qu'une solitaire du Figaro est plus difficile à gagner qu'un Vendée Globe.
Et je pense qu'on a la chance d'avoir en course au large des courses extraordinaires. Vendée Globe et la solitaire du Figaro en font partie évidemment. Et pour moi, elles sont complémentaires, elles se nourrissent. L'une nourrit l'autre et vice-versa.
Sur un Vendée Globe, vous avez au départ 4-5 favoris et on va dire 6-7 bateaux qui peuvent gagner. Sur une solitaire du Figaro, vous pouvez avoir 15 à 20 concurrents qui peuvent gagner la course. Donc ça change complètement la donne au niveau sportif, au niveau enjeu. Faire une étape dans les 5-10 premiers à la solitaire du Figaro, c'est toujours compliqué. Réussir un Vendée Globe, le terminer dans les 10 premiers, on va dire que c'est relativement possible, mais on va dire que la confrontation et les concurrents, la concurrence qui peut exister sur un Figaro est peut-être sûrement plus élevée que sur un Vendée Globe.
Si on est performant à la solitaire, c'est parce qu'on est performant tout court.
C'est grâce à la solitaire que j'ai appris mon métier de marin, coureur au large solitaire. Et voilà, et ça reste pour moi une référence, si ce n'est la référence.
Moi, je conseillerais finalement à des marins qui veulent un jour faire le Vendée Globe, tout simplement déjà de commencer par participer à la solitaire du Figaro, ne serait-ce que pour apprendre les rudiments, les bases de la course au large en solitaire.
Statistiquement, pour moi, la solitaire du Figaro est beaucoup plus dure. J'en ai fait 14, j'en ai gagné 3. J'ai fait 2 Vendées, j'en ai gagné 2. Voilà. Je sais, il n'y a que moi qui peux le dire.
We've been under AP for 2 hours, the answering pennant. During that 2-hour window, there was a weather update from the Bureau of Meteorology at 10:39. The gale warning is still current, so we're not going to go sailing today. We're going to go N over A. Racing today is abandoned, and we'll have an earlier start tomorrow. Okay, we'll have the first warning signal at 9 a.m. tomorrow to try and get as many races in as we can.
Yeah, so we're down here representing the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. So we've come down from Brisbane, and as we know, the weather here is not too great, and it wasn't too great on the drive down either. It's meant to be about a 9-hour drive, and I think it took us 17 in the end. A couple of road closures near Coffs, and had to park on the side of the road and in a giant traffic jam, and sort of had a little sleep there, and then kept going. And yeah, we got here in the end. I think we rolled in about 6:30 this morning.
Oh, we're feeling pretty good. Like, we missed the training day, but I think we made up for it because we pretty much sailed down here in the Nissan Cube. So I think we're ready to go, like, bouncing off the walls.
A bit disappointed as we came all the way down here hoping to get racing, but hopefully it should be good tomorrow. I'm 13. Yeah, I sail LH6s and NS14s, and then sometimes Bics.
Being, one of the younger crews out here, we were all limited by school time, so we weren't able to get out on the boats yesterday, and they've only just come in. So it's been a bit hasty getting together as a crew, and it'll be our first time sailing together in a race, actually.
Yes, there's 4 of us on board. We're an open team. We've all sailed a range of different boats. We've got Josh Franklin, he sails VX1s. Mara, she's representing Australia. She's gone to the Tokyo Olympics in the laser radial class. Sammy, she does foiling windsurfing, and I sail the 49er for the Australian Sailing Squad as well. And yeah, all obviously from Royal Queensland, and just looking forward to doing some sailing together and what looks like a great competition. Yeah, really looking forward to getting into it.
I think we should be all right. I think we've got a pretty good range of experience between the 4 of us, and yeah, I think we'll manage to get it sorted.
Following their successful defense of the 36th America's Cup in Auckland, New Zealand last week, as the Defender crossed the finishing line, the representatives of the defending cup holders, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, and the host UK Yacht Club, of the Ineos Team UK Syndicate, the Royal Yacht Squadron Racing, were on board a yacht signing the agreement for the UK club to be the challenger of record for the 37th America's Cup defence. This is how the local leading newspaper, the New Zealand Herald, saw what happened. We quote, March 19, 2021. America's Cup 2021, Royal Yacht Squadron UK confirmed as next challenger of record, strict nationality rules introduced. Team New Zealand have moved to keep the country's top sailing talent out of the clutches of America's Cup competitors, only days after winning the Old Mug for the 4th time. Speaking to NZME, the Commodore of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, Aaron Young, confirmed that strict new nationality rules would require 100% of crews to be citizens or have spent 2 of the previous 3 years in the country they represent. With the America's Cup locked away for at least another year, the new regulation will likely allow Team New Zealand to retain the likes of helmsman Peter Burling and flight controller Blair Tuke, who would have attracted the interest of billionaire-backed teams during their defense of the Cup in Auckland. Young said they want to keep the regatta as an event between countries. The America's Cup is a sporting event between nations, and we're trying to take that back a little bit to tradition and what the America's Cup has been about. No one's asked for it particularly, but we feel that's the right way to go to enhance the event. As first reported by the Herald on Tuesday, the British Royal Yacht Squadron, who are represented by Ineos Team UK and have Sir Ben Ainslie as their skipper, have been confirmed as the next challenger of record for the 37th America's Cup. Team UK are bankrolled by Jim Ratcliffe, Britain's wealthiest man, and are a logical partner for the next Cup, given how the association between Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa, the challenger of record for the 36th America's Cup, has steadily deteriorated over the last year. Young said they're a long way off organizing the next event, which is rumored to be as soon as next year, in a one-off regatta between Team New Zealand and Team UK at the Isle of Wight. Right now Team New Zealand are in a negotiation period with the New Zealand government around what happens. We'll leave that with them to work through. The team are in an exclusive 3-month negotiation period, so there's not going to be anything before then. As we all know, the option sits with New Zealand to see if we can put something together to enable us to race the 37th America's Cup in Auckland, but there's a lot to work through, and there's a lot for and against. Young also confirmed that the next regatta would be sailed in the AC-75 foiling monohulls, used for the first time in Auckland. The main thing is that we will be sailing the same boats, the AC-75s. We'll be seeing them out again, hopefully in New Zealand, Young said. They've changed the sport for the average person. They've made it more relatable, more exciting. The America's Cup has always been about innovation and technology, as much as sailing, and the AC-75 has done that. There's a lot to work through yet, as we have a number of months to work through a lot of detail. The AC-75 class shall remain the class of yacht for the next 2 America's Cup cycles, and teams will be restricted to building only one new AC-75 for the next event, while the Defender and the Challenger of record will be investigating and agreeing to campaign cost reduction measures, including measures to attract a higher number of challengers, and to assist with the establishment of new teams. The introduction of strict nationality rules will require 100% of the race crew, for each competitor, to either be a passport holder of the country of the team's yacht club, as at March 19, 2021, or to have been physically present in that country, or, acting on behalf of such yacht club in Auckland during the 36th America's Cup, for 2 of the previous 3 years prior to March 18, 2021. As an exception to this requirement, there will be a discretionary provision allowing a quota of non-nationals on the race crew for competitors from emerging nations. The new citizenship rules could prevent a repeat of what Team New Zealand were forced to endure ahead of their Cup defense in 2000, when skipper Russell Coutts was lured away on a lucrative deal to join Swiss syndicate Alinghi, immediately becoming the Kiwis' rival. Tactician Brad Butterworth followed Coutts, and the two helped lead Alinghi to victory in Auckland in 2003. What is the Global Solo Challenge? The Global Solo Challenge is a single-handed, without assistance, around-the-world sailing event with a unique format. It will depart from A Coruña, Spain, in September 2023. It is for sailors on a wide range of boats, seeking the challenge of a competitive solo circumnavigation, under the umbrella of an affordable, well-organized and controlled event that puts the safety of participants first. The format is unlike any other round-the-world event and will make it fair and exciting, for the skippers as well as easy and engaging for the public and sponsors to follow. Boats will be grouped by performance characteristics and set off in successive departures over 8 weeks. Once at sea, there are no classes. All boats will be sailing the same event. The faster boats will have to try to catch up with the slower boats, the pursuit factor creating competitive interest aboard, and a fascinating event for the public and sponsors. The first boat to cross the finish line wins. The performance differential between the boats is taken into account in staggering the departures, eliminating the need to calculate corrected times.
the racing at Court Week is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, good racing.
Unbelievable racing.
We've got very fun memories of the race courses.
Everybody really giving it socks on the water.
It's very competitive.
On the water, it was so close, came down to a tie in the end.
For him to finish in the podium or near it.
It was really windy, and then it was...
His masthead had just gone through my new North Mainsail.
The harbour course, and how difficult that was.
We would have missed the start, but there was a general recall.
Those 2 marks, and every time we had to get another person on the sheet.
Shade laid about 6, 7 boats around us.
And all of a sudden, whoa, we've got a mast and some spreaders coming up through the mainsail. Where the whatnot did that come from?
You need to know the tides, you need to know the shallow.
This shows how hard it is to win your class at Court Week.
Really entertaining being on the water.
And a really good fleet of boats.
That's what you want.
That's rare in sailing.
Top quality racing right through the fleet.